It's hard to believe, but June 14th marked the 10-year anniversary of The Last of Us. It's amazing to see how this series has grown since, from multiple ports and remakes of the original, a full-fledged sequel, and a television adaptation courtesy of HBO. To celebrate this milestone, I'm going to be taking a look at both the original PlayStation 3 release and its standalone DLC, Left Behind. I'll be adding chapters to each part of the review in case you need to skip, though if you haven't played the original game, I would recommend watching my review first before watching my review for Left Behind. With that being said, let's go back to where it all began.
Jimmy, stay back! Jimmy, I am warning you! Don't!
By 2013, Naughty Dog had established themselves as a key pillar in Sony's first-party developer lineup, having found success across 3 generations of consoles. From Crash Bandicoot to Jak and Daxter and Uncharted, each series pushed their consoles to the limit and ensured the Californian developer's newest release would be highly anticipated. Unlike prior generations, which saw the developer focus on a single series, a second new IP would launch during the PlayStation 3's lifetime, known as The Last of Us, serving as something of a magnum opus for both the platform and 7th generation of consoles. Even if the post-apocalypse was well-worn territory by this point, this epic story remains one of the finest examples even a decade later, and proves essential play for PlayStation 3 owners. A fungal outbreak ravages the United States, with the cordyceps turning hosts into mindless creatures intent on violence. Just prior to the full-blown outbreak, Joel attempts to flee a chaotic suburb in Texas with his daughter and brother when the military shoots and kills Sarah. 20 years after, the entirety of the US is overrun and leaves few survivors whom are isolated to lockdown sectors, independent outcasts, or raider groups. Joel is now a smuggler who gets more than he bargained for when being asked to smuggle Ellie, a young girl of mysterious importance. This takes the form of a cross-country road trip, with multiple pit stops as they run into other survivors, violent psychopaths, and plenty of infected. The world building and storytelling is simply phenomenal, replete with meaty story arcs that shock and ascend tropes you'd associate with competing games. Even time skips feel earned and only add a sense of distance this journey takes. It's a masterclass in narrative, from the haunting opening to its thoughtful end.
Please don't. Please.
The thread itself is strong, but the characters are perhaps even better. Joel benefits from a dedicated performance from Troy Baker, lending a somber tone shaped by grief and the harsh world around him that feels sympathetic. While some of his actions prove questionable, even barbaric, it feels like a necessary evil to survive. Ellie, meanwhile, is almost the polar opposite. Ashley Johnson delivers her lines with the unsure awkwardness you'd expect from a teenager, only amplified when life around her is so volatile. She proves likeable and relatable, like perhaps how we'd act in this scenario, but also vulnerable. The dynamic between Joel and Ellie starts cold, but seeing their tandem evolve as each imparts their backstory proves compelling. It helps that performances are motion captured, with visual tics and emotions coming across effectively. Even characters who appear briefly feel impactful in their short time, making the most of the setting and world.
Ain't been out here in a while.
It's like we're on a date.
Well, I am the romantic type.
Got your ways.
It helps that The Last of Us stands as one of the best looking games of this generation, with Naughty Dog showcasing their skill at maximising a system's capabilities. The sprawling levels, while admittedly linear, stretch quite the distance as you see the ruin of the apocalypse contrasted with overgrown shrub, life and decay in tandem. Cutscenes look excellent, boasting top-notch animations both during in-engine and full-motion sequences. Infected designs cause your skin to crawl, with clickers likely to linger in the memory as their grotesque fungus replaces facial features. Even thugs intimidate with their scarred facials and worn clothes. The only shame is performance, which holds steady next to most 7th gen titles, but can dip noticeably during intense moments. Sound is equally fantastic, with stupendous voice acting heightening the excellent narrative, impactful effects such as potent gunshots and gruesome deaths, and understated yet effective music which raises the stakes, adds tension, and pours on the emotion further. The Last of Us mixes familiar gunplay with stealth, each benefiting from a brutal edge. Well-aimed shots can see limbs explode in gruesome fashion, and the range of armaments from booming shotguns to craftable nail bombs all hit the mark. Though there is still some uneasiness with aiming, acclimatization and reduced weapon sway skills both help. Stealth can bore some frustrations of the genre, such as a clear lack of enemy vision, but this is eased by Joel's hearing ability, which highlights enemies through walls. Clickers add a great deal of tension, despite lacking sight, with detection risking an instant death, at least until you acquire the Shiv counterattack. The only damper on both sides is some noticeable issues with AI. Allies may open fire during stealth, enemies can detect you despite facing the other way, and tactile combat AI can also bug out. It's nothing game-breaking, but it does diminish the immersion. But thankfully, The Last of Us mixes creative scenarios with an incredible sequences which help mute these mishaps. Many spacious sections allow for both stealth and assault approaches, and though it comes with the risk of diminished ammo, chaining kills feels very satisfying. Memorable set pieces include a tense defense as Joel is hanging upside down, taking down a sniper, then using the weapon to guard your allies, and terrifying encounters with larger bloaters. Taking around 14 hours to polish off, there's a ton to seek out here. Collectibles offer more insight into life in the apocalypse and remnants of before. Optional conversations deepen the bond between Joel and his companions. Supplements and scrap allow you to upgrade Joel and his weaponry, respectively. You can handily carry these over to a New Game Plus, incentivizing return runs. Meanwhile, multiple difficulty options allow for a story-focused experience compared to Survivor Mode's tense, resource-scarce challenge that recalls classic horror games. There was also an interesting multiplayer mode available, allowing you to side with the Firefly or Hunter camps and gather resources, though sadly this was shuttered for PlayStation 3 in 2019, though it is currently still playable via the PlayStation 4 remaster. Even a decade on from its launch, The Last of Us remains a fantastic experience with incredible storytelling, stunning presentation, and visceral gameplay forming a superb package. A step forward for video game narratives that remains strong to this day, Naughty Dog would deftly balance character development, scope, and tone to keep players engrossed throughout. A few issues with AI aside, gameplay feels weighty and is bolstered by a litany of memorable sequences. While PlayStation 3 owners would be starved initially for quality exclusives, The system garnered a reputation for housing some of the best of the generation as time went by, and this Outbreak story definitely sits near the top.
I totally got this.
After the launch of The Last of Us, a small team within Naughty Dog would begin work on a standalone story, and 8 months later, Left Behind would be the end result. While much of the cast could have easily benefited from more exploration, Ellie was wisely chosen as the focal point, offering more depth into her character while exploring threads teased in the base game. The pricey experience likely won't convince those not enamoured with the original game, but fans will find this side story well worth a look. A dual narrative focusing on Ellie, Left Behind reveals how she fended for herself during a key time in the main game, while also shedding light on a notable event in her life a few weeks before meeting Joel. In particular, it delves more on a briefly mentioned friend Riley, as Ellie spends time with her in an abandoned mall. Each chapter sees you jumping back and forth, often with clever transitions, lending it a decent pace. Ashley Johnson returns as Ellie, while Yanni King voices and motion captures for Riley. Both do a tremendous job, with Riley making for a likeable addition, and the bond between the two teenagers proving compelling. Even though our time with the duo is brief, you feel the emotional connection between the two. In terms of events during the main game, it offers an enjoyable preamble to Ellie's development that occurs after the events of this expansion.
Please be in here, please be in here.
In terms of everything else, Left Behind sticks closely to the base game. Gunplay, stealth, and crafting all function identically, albeit with less weapons, items to craft, and no skills to unlock for Ellie. There's a stronger focus on narrative here, with some chapters omitting combat encounters entirely. Luckily, the strong thread keeps the experience glued together. There's emotional resonance, humour, and terror all popping up as you progress. A few Easter eggs and friendly challenges against Riley are also welcome, such as a brick throwing contest. It's fairly brisk, with an initial run likely taking 2 hours to polish off, but you can attempt the story on the same difficulties from The Last of Us. There's a lot to like here for fans of the original, though the few combat moments do feel a bit rigid in comparison to the main game. A trek through a locked shop almost demands stealth lest you get wiped out, while the final encounter frustrates with minimal opportunities for stealth and feels drawn out. Its $7.99 price tag feels somewhat steep, but Left Behind should please fans of the base game. A satisfying expansion on Ellie's backstory, a likeable addition to the cast, and plenty of memorable moments will prove enjoyable for those wanting that mix of post-apocalypse and emotional resonance. But those not enamoured by The Last of Us will likely find little to change their minds here.
Oh, I got something else.
What is that?
What did the triangle say to the circle?
What is that?
You're so pointless.